Welcome to Open Sky Public School. Today we are going to talk about resources and development that is part of class 10th geography. I am Akash Singh Kaushik. Let's get started. First of all, have a look on content we are going to discuss in this video. Its resources, its type, development of resources, planning of resources, conservation of resources, and at last we will have self-assessment what we have learned in this lecture. What is resources? Everything present in environment which is used by humans are called resources. A resource must be economically feasible. Means it should not cost very high that one cannot afford it. Culturally acceptable means your culture or our culture should allow to use these resources. Third is technologically accessible means we must have technology to use these resources. Human is the most important resource on the earth as it can improve itself. Resources are interdependent on different factors that are nature, technology, and institution. Human beings are in the center of this, as these resources are only worthy if human uses it. Resources are divided in different groups, that is natural and human. Natural resources are divided into two subgroups, renewable, non-renewable. Renewable is divided into two subsets, continuous and biological, while biological have also two parts, natural vegetation and wildlife. Non-renewable resources have recyclable that is metals, and non-recyclable that is fossil fuel. Humans have also two subsets, that is structures and institution, quantity and quality. First, discuss the classification of resources on the basis of origin. We will discuss the classification of resources on four different bases. First is origin. On the basis of origin, there are two types of resources: biotic resources, abiotic resources. Biotic resource means that is obtained from biosphere, and it that is once have been living. Example: human being, livestock means animals, flora and fauna, plant and animals, coal, petroleum, etc. Abiotic resource: these resources are composed of non-living things, that is soil, rocks, metal, winds, etc. Moving ahead, we have classification on the basis of exhaustibility or limitation of use, means how much we can use it. First is renewable resources. Renewable resources are those resources which get replenished after use. That example: solar energy, wind energy, forest, wildlife, etc. Renewable resources is also divided into two subsets, flow or continuous, and the second is biological. Non-renewable resources occur over a very long geological time. It may take millions of years to form. Examples: minerals, metal, fossil fuels, etc. It is also divided into two types, recyclable and non-recyclable. Now we are dividing on the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership, four different subsets have been derived. First is individual resource, means one person handle it or own it. Example: plantation, pasture land, pond, etc. Your pen, your book, these all are individual resources. While on moving ahead, we see community owned resources. These resources are owned by all the members of community, means a group of people own it. Those are grazing ground, burial grounds, public parks, etc. Third one is national resources. These resources are under control of nation or country. means the government of that country is the owner of these resources. Example: canal, river, coal mines, territorial sea. Uh, sea is sea is not totally a natural resource. It is up to 12 nautical mile from the coast. Coming to international resources, these resources are governed by international organization or no single country claim it. Example: open sea, open air, etc. But let's keep one thing in mind: open air above the boundary of any country is the part of their national resources. Internet from the coast of a country up to 200 nautical miles, there is a special zone. We call it exclusive economic zone. Means only that country is allowed to access and exhaust it or use or explore the resources of that area. On the basis of status of development, 4 parts: potential, developed, stock and reserves. Potential means there are vast chance, there are resources in abundance, but we don't use those resources properly. Example: vast tidal waves in the coast of India, abundance of heat in Rajasthan and Gujarat. These are potential resources which can be used in future in very large amount. Second is developed resources. These resources are surveyed and quantified for utilization through available technology. Means these resources are being used at its full-fledged. Example: coal and petroleum. Third one is stock. The stocks are those which are capable of satisfying human needs, but knowledge to use them is not developed. Example: hydrogen and oxygen in water. We know hydrogen burns, oxygen helps in burning. It can be used to produce a huge amount of energy, huge amount of fuel, but we do not have appropriate technology to use this. So we call it a stock, as we can use it in futures. Reserves are a specific stock for which appropriate technological knowledge to how these resources will be used is available, but exploration has not started it. Example: water in rivers. We have made some dams on rivers, but there is very much chance to increase the number of dams which will enable us to help to do more. There are something that should be kept in mind while using resources. Resources are vital for human survival. If resources are not available, we are going to face a very bad time. Look what is happening right now. During this corona pandemic, there is a scarcity of resources, and we are being heavily affected by the scarcity of the resources. Resources are not free. You might be getting it free, but someone has to pay for these resources. If you use these resources indiscriminately, you are going to face, or we are going to face, many global ecological crises such as global warming, ozone layer depletion, environmental pollution and land degradation. For equitable distribution of resources, we need sustainable development. We will learn more about this term, what we call sustainable development, on further slides. Let's see what is sustainable development. Sustainable economic development means development must take place but without damaging the environment, and the and it should not compromise with the needs of future generation. We must save our resources for future needs or use of future generation. For sustainable development, here are something that has taken place. Let's see. In June 1992, more than 100 heads of state met in Rio de Janeiro, which is in Brazil. It was first international Earth Summit. Here, a convention took place and a special agenda for the 21st century was adapted, and this agenda was known as Agenda 21. What is Agenda 21? Agenda 21 says in 21st century we are going to face very different problems, and to tackle those problems we means the countries of the world, people of the world will need global cooperation. Otherwise no one single can handle this, as you can see this in corona pandemic. Another major objective of this Agenda 21 is that every global government should draw its own local agenda, which will be working in its local in government in country of those government. Now we need resource planning. Planning is widely accepted strategy for judicial use of resources. If we do not plan, how will we use these resources? There are some regions which are self-sufficient in some resources but lack in different resources. As we can see, Rajasthan have a tremendous potential of solar energy, but it lacks water. In Jammu and Kashmir, we have very much amount of different resources. In Meghalaya, we have a large amount of rainfall, but we haven't used it properly. So if we balance the thing, we can plan the resources and we can use it much appropriately in a better manner. All these conditions call for balanced resource planning at the national, state, regional and local levels. What is resource planning? What does it involve? First, identification of resources done. Means their surveys, mapping are done, approximation are done, how much resources are here, what is the quality of the resources. These all things are done. Next, planning for resource development using appropriate skill, technology and institutional setup. If you have resources, like in case of Africa has a vast amount of resources, but it does not have much of the countries of the Africa does not have appropriate skill, technology and institutional setup to use those resources. The planning of resources must match the planning of national development, otherwise it is going to not being worthy anymore. We need to conserve the resources. If we use irrationally, if you overutilize the resources, it will lead to socio-economic and environmental problem. Resource conservation at various levels is important to tackle this problem. In 1987, Brundtland Commission report introduces the concept of sustainable development. Means term sustainable development was first evolved in Brundtland Commission, which took place in 1987. Moving ahead, look who we have here. We see Mahatma Gandhi. What is he saying? His saying is, there is enough for everybody's need and not for anybody's greed. On earth, there is sufficient resources to fulfill everybody's need, but it is not sufficient to fulfill even a single person's greed. Now it's time for self assessment. Pause this video, take a screenshot, and assess yourself. Thanks for watching. Signing off. I'm Akash Singh Kaushik.